Hello there. This is yet another nail in the coffin of personal vehicle ownership. First, we hear that motorway service forecourts are having to hire extra staff to try and police a surge in the levels of electric vehicle charger rage. Then we hear that insurers are getting cold feet over the expense of storing and repairing EVs. Now, according to Moto Services Chief Executive Ken McKeegan, he can't get enough grid connections in place to provide a sufficient number of charging points for electric vehicles. And this has led to a growth in the number of charge rage cases. That means people are having a go at each other because of a government failure to provide the electric juice and cables necessary for a charge top-up for everyone on demand. They are also getting irate and potentially violent because of a lack on their part to do some basic research into the true situation where EVs and connections are concerned. They believed the hype and the promises that all will be well. The Telegraph quotes the Moto chief exec as saying, "People need to drive their EV cars around without range anxiety, without long queues and without public disorder. But at peak seasonal times we are experiencing all this now." But with reports of a logjam in achieving all the connections required, one wonders how long it will take to achieve charging power on demand for all EV users. At the moment, the answer seems to lie in ditching all the red tape and planning restrictions to allow developers to do as they please where net zero is concerned. You know, all that red tape, we're told, that keeps us and the workforce safe and ensures all the construction work is solid and reliable. Just imagine the ramifications of potential corner cutting where high voltage power lines and the like are concerned. I also gather that there are some zombie applications in the power pipeline that need clearing out in order to up the pace for all this net zero stuff. Wonder if they were referring to HS2. But whatever, it sounds to me like this is going to take years, if not decades, to sort out. While we festoon the land and the sea with yet more windmills, solar panels and mile upon mile of pylons and wires. But one cannot drive a vehicle on the road unless it is insured. And one insurer, John Lewis Financial Services, has reportedly put a temporary freeze on EV insurance due to the rising costs of repairs. But it might be a lot wider than that. According to The Guardian, one EV driver was shocked when the insurance on his Tesla Model Y came up for renewal, and Aviva refused to cover him again, while several other brands turned him away. And the unnamed driver told The Guardian that my insurer was Aviva from July 2022 to July 2023. But when it was coming up for renewal, I received a letter stating that they would not be covering the Tesla Model Y anymore. I am a member of a Tesla UK Owners Forum, and lots of other people seem to be having the same issue. Maybe Elon Musk needs to get into the insurance game to service his EV buying customers. Anyway, the Guardian piece also said the reinsurance quotes were ramping up by between 60% and 940%. Rocketing up from 447 quid a year to over 4.5 grand. The truth is coming out through lived experience. The hype is not matching the government and trade delivery. And why are the costs of repair so high? Basically because the battery is the most expensive part of the car. The battery is half the value of the car. But if there's no battery, then there's no car, and it's valueless. And it is built into the chassis low down and near the road and curbs, with even the slightest damage to the battery housing raising fears that the battery itself could be damaged, so carrying the risk of a thermal runaway that burns for days and can ignite anything in its vicinity. And if one of these is involved in a minor collision, the advice is to leave it where it is until an expert with the right equipment turns up. There is even the risk of getting electrocuted if you try and push the car off the road without the right gloves on. There is even the risk of getting electrocuted if you try and push the car off the road without the right gloves on. And when the EV is brought to the repair yard, they have to be stored 15 metres apart until they are cleared by a qualified mechanic to ensure that if a battery thermal runaway does occur, other vehicles won't combust in sympathy. Now, insurance companies want to be competitive. Well, at least to new customers, so screwing those who don't switch seems to be fair game to them. But they're not going to throw money away. They do their research, assessing risk against return while taking the competition into consideration. And these rising insurance costs are telling us the truth of the situation. The market and cold, hard cash are taking chunks out of the EV hype. But it's worse for the EV-owning community than just current running costs. How much do they think they will get for their current vehicle when they want to upgrade? How much would you pay for a potentially uninsurable EV? And if, say, in 5 to 10 years' time, a manufacturer develops an EV that will never self-immolate, where battery changes and vehicle repairs are a cheap doddle, all the current EVs, however good they may be, will be scrapped, probably at the owner's cost. Something along the lines of a buy a diesel car to save the planet situation, followed by oops. And looking at those insurance prices, they'd have been better off trying to sell their EV now, while they can, and spending the $5,000 insurance cost on a second-hand internal combustion engine car. I wonder how long it will be before insurers are offering policies to cover EVs that are stored and not used on the roads because they can't get rid of them. Anyway, I wonder how many of those who get riled while in the EV charging point queue have just been stung with a huge insurance hike. Now, manufacturers and product developers always rely on early adopters to test their wares on. And I've said it before, the UK is an early adopter where net zero is concerned. And just like in all other fields, the first products are buggy and expensive. In this case, potentially lethal into the bargain. But the government is pushing this in the hope that by being early adopters, we will lead the way in net zero tech and reap all the rewards the public is currently paying through the nose for. But it won't pan out that way, because we will always end up buying the cheap Chinese knockoff versions while they snigger behind our backs. They'll just nab the technology out of the university and corporate systems and plug it straight into their production lines using cheap labour that far undercuts ours. They've already got people embedded there, just as they have in our government. In fact, we might well be paying right now for the future growth of China. And in his Sunday sermon on GB News, the Reform UK leader, Richard Tice, related the story of him gatecrashing a meeting of the extremely rich and powerful, all eco-zealot cultists, earlier in the week, talking about such things as them making more heaps of money by accelerating the rush to net zero at whatever the cost to you and I. They only care about themselves and their hideously growing wealth. They do not care about us. For us, they want net zero dosh. Own nothing and be happy. Well, they'll be very happy, won't they?